Imagine being thrown overboard, bound and helpless, as a ship drags you not through the water, but underneath its barnacle-encrusted hull. The darkness, the crushing pressure, the razor-sharp shells scraping your flesh. Could any punishment be more terrifying? Dive into the chilling truth of keelhauling. Was this history's most brutal punishment? Keelhauling, history's most brutal punishment. Life aboard a sailing ship in the age of sail was undeniably harsh. Discipline was brutal, hierarchy was absolute, and punishments were swift and often terrifying, designed to maintain order in confined, dangerous environments. Among the myriad forms of naval corporal punishment, one stands out for its unique savagery and infamous reputation: keelhauling. The very word evokes a visceral dread, conjuring images of unimaginable suffering beneath the waves. While not as universally practiced as flogging, its sheer brutality prompts the chilling question: was keelhauling truly history's most brutal punishment? This method of correction, primarily associated with the Dutch Navy, pushed the boundaries of human endurance, often resulting in agonizing death, serving as a stark deterrent to any thoughts of insubordination or mutiny. Let's delve into the dark depths of maritime justice and explore the mechanics, history, and horrifying reality of keelhauling. What was keelhauling? The horrific method keelhauling, from the Dutch keelhaulen, meaning to drag along the keel, was a form of corporal punishment and often execution, meted out to sailors at sea. Its mechanics were horrifyingly simple, yet devastatingly effective. The setup: the condemned sailor was stripped and tied with ropes. One rope was secured from the ship's mast to one side, port or starboard, looped beneath the vessel, and then extended up the other side to a yardarm. Sometimes, weights were attached to the victim to ensure they sank. The drag: the sailor was then thrown overboard on one side of the ship, usually the bow or foremast, and violently dragged downwards under the ship's keel, the spine of the ship's bottom, and then hauled up the other side. Alternatively, in a lengthwise keel haul, the victim might be dragged from bow to stern, along the entire length of the hull. The damage, the physical trauma inflicted, was immense and varied. Barnacles and marine growth: the ship's hull was typically encrusted with razor-sharp barnacles, mussels, and other marine growth. As the body was dragged across, these would savagely cut, tear, and flay the victim's skin, often to the bone. Impact trauma: the victim could easily strike against the keel or other parts of the ship's underside, causing broken bones, head injuries, and internal trauma. Drowning: the immense struggle, the lack of air, and the terror would quickly lead to drowning if the victim could not hold their breath for the agonizing duration of the drag. Hypothermia: the cold, deep water, even in warmer climates, would rapidly lead to hypothermia, further weakening the victim. Rope burns: the ropes themselves could cause severe burns and constriction injuries. The intent was rarely simply to execute, but to inflict extreme agony and serve as a terrifying public spectacle. Origins, usage, and the severity of offenses: the earliest definitive mention of keelhauling appears in the Byzantine Rhodian Maritime Code Lex Rhodia around 700 CE, outlining punishment for piracy. However, the practice became most famously and officially associated with the Dutch Navy from the 16th to the 18th centuries, where it was codified in their naval law Article Breven. While often depicted in popular culture as a common pirate punishment with little historical evidence for this, its official use was primarily in state navies, particularly the Dutch. There's limited evidence of its systematic adoption by the British Navy. Keelhauling was reserved for the most severe breaches of naval discipline: mutiny, any act of rebellion against a ship's officers; desertion, abandoning one's post or ship; gross insubordination, direct and flagrant defiance of orders; major theft or gross negligence, especially if it endangered the ship or crew; falling asleep on watch, a critical offense that could doom the ship. Why so brutal? Maintaining order at sea: the extreme brutality of keelhauling and other naval punishments stemmed from the unique and forgiving conditions of life at sea. Absolute discipline: in the confined, dangerous environment of a wooden sailing ship, strict discipline was paramount for survival. A single act of insubordination or negligence could jeopardize the entire crew and vessel. Limited options: and like land-based justice systems, there were no prisons at sea. Physical punishment, including severe corporal punishment and immediate execution, were often the only practical means of enforcing order and deterring crime. Deterrence, the public spectacle of keelhauling was meant to instill overwhelming fear and serve as a chilling warning to the entire crew, reinforcing the absolute authority of the captain. Survival rate, a near certain death sentence. Survival from a full keelhaul was rare and often accidental. Even if a victim was dragged quickly and avoided severe lacerations from barnacles or fatal impact, the immense struggle, the terror, the cold water, and the sheer lack of oxygen would typically lead to drowning or death from shock. Those who did survive were often left with horrific, debilitating injuries, including massive lacerations, broken bones, and severe infections from contaminated water. Keelhauling versus other brutal punishments, history's most brutal. When comparing keelhauling to other brutal punishments in history, its unique horror stands out. Versus flogging. Keto Nine Tails. Flogging was widespread and incredibly painful, designed to tear flesh. While sometimes fatal due to shock or infection, its primary aim was agonizing pain, not guaranteed death. Keelhauling was far more likely to be lethal and inflicted a different, more visceral kind of terror. Versus hanging at the yardarm. Hanging was a swift, public execution. While terrifying, the death was relatively quick. Keelhauling, by contrast, prolonged agony in a uniquely terrifying way, blending suffocation, laceration, and blunt trauma. Versus the breaking wheel. Land-based punishments like the breaking wheel, systematically shattering bones over hours or days, were arguably even more prolonged and agonizing in their torture. Other forms of prolonged torture like flaying or drawing and quartering also vie for most brutal. Keelhauling holds its unique place as one of history's most horrifying punishments, particularly in the maritime context. Its combination of suffocation, laceration, and public humiliation makes it a chilling testament to the extremes of naval justice. While most brutal is subjective, keelhauling certainly belongs in the top tier of human cruelty. Abolition, the end of an era. As humanitarian reforms gained traction in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the more extreme forms of corporal punishment at sea gradually diminished. The Dutch Navy, its most prominent user, formally abolished keelhauling in 1853. Other navies had ceased the practice earlier or never officially adopted it. The decline of keelhauling marked a shift in naval attitudes towards discipline, moving away from such extreme, often lethal, forms of physical punishment. Conclusion: a maritime nightmare remembered. Keelhauling remains a grim and chilling chapter in naval history, a testament to the brutal realities of life at sea and the extreme measures taken to maintain order and deter defiance. Its unique combination of drowning, laceration, and public spectacle ensures its enduring infamy. While the world may never agree on a single most brutal punishment, keelhauling's horrifying efficiency and visceral terror firmly secure its place in the dark annals of human history. A stark reminder of the lengths to which societies once went to enforce control.